Senator Keogan.
Thank you. And I have read your statements. I wasn't here for you reading out your statements, but I did read your statements, Dr. Tolan and Professor Madden. Dr. Tolan, you say the 2022 bill provides for altruistic domestic surrogacy, but any amendment to this draft legislation will have to be willing to embrace commercial surrogacy arrangements. That is the first inconsistency that the state will have to be willing to accept in principle. So I have a couple of questions. First one is, do you have any objection in principle to commercial surrogacy? If not, why not? The second one is, do you believe Irish law should formally recognise commercial surrogacy here and abroad? The third one is, why do you think most countries ban commercial surrogacy? And do you share the concerns of the UN Special Rapporteur on sale and sexual exploitation of children that commercial surrogacy can easily amount to the sale of children, and therefore the practice cannot be in their best interest by definition? And towards the end of your paper, you say, in case of male same-sex parents, the birth certificate proposed by you would not record the child's mother. Thus, the child will have no legal mother at birth. But every child has a mother. And, are you proposing that the birth certs do not properly reflect the reality of the child's parentage? Just a few things.
Thank you, Senator. I'll take those in reverse order, if that's okay. So the birth cert recommendation towards the end of the briefing document refers to the domestic surrogacy model that I'm proposing. And I think it should be remembered that we're proposing to set up a national surrogacy register. That, to my mind, is where the surrogate's details should be registered and made available to the child, at the age of, I think it's 16 now, as proposed by the 2022 bill. I think the birth cert should, where possible, reflect intended parentage, whether that is opposite-sex intended parents or same-sex intended parents, but with the surrogate's information placed in the necessary repository, which I think is the NSR, the National Surrogacy Register. I would hope it's clear from the briefing document, I don't know if you have time to read that, that I am very much aware of the UN Special Rapporteur's recommendations on sale of children, and I very much make recommendations that try to avoid that or comply with her recommendations, where she tells us that things like contractual arrangements that deal with legal and physical transfer of parentage with no sort of right to object for the surrogate, that is massively problematic. I respect that. So I totally agree with her position, even though her position does to some extent fetter what we can do in our legislation also, in that it can be difficult practically to provide for the surrogate's right to object. If we go ahead with some academics and activists recommend pre-birth court orders for the domestic model, I absolutely don't agree with that. As I've said in my statement, I think the AHRA is the appropriate body, and there is evidence for that as well. One of the reasons I recommended to the committee to please take time with this is I'm very au fait with ongoing law reform projects in both the UK and New Zealand, and they have been going on in the UK since 2017. I think you've been given a very short time frame to do something that is so complex, and I commend you all for what you're doing. So my recommendations about taking time and getting departments on board really comes from a good place. Now, as regards the payment of surrogates or potential payment of surrogates, I keep an open mind. The Law Commission in the UK has put this out in their consultation paper. I'm waiting to see what they come back with. I don't think they'll come back in favour of letting the market set the payment for surrogates. I don't think I would be in favour of that, a fully commercial model. But potentially a more compensated model, which I think is in practice, if you've read the briefing document as well, looking at Greece, the UK, that's what altruistic surrogacy seems to be largely in practice. I'm certainly keeping an open mind as to the potential for compensating surrogates.
Your views are totally different. We had Gerard Kenny in here from the Irish Gay Dads and Shane Lennon. And they were very adamant that they had no problem with the birth mother being on the birth cert.
I actually did watch that debate, and do correct me
Yes.
if I'm wrong. I think that actually they said it was required by the law of the jurisdiction in which the birth took
Yeah.
place. I don't think that they said they had no problem, but that it was a requirement.
I think they actually did, didn't they?
They clarified later on, I think when they elaborated, they clarified that they were okay with it, given that it was the law of the jurisdiction.
Yeah.
I think later on there was like a clarification of the comment, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, thank you very much.